On behalf of the Executive Board, I would like to welcome representatives of our provincial government, as well as our regional and local politicians, and especially also the Mayor of Maastricht, Mrs. Annemarie Pen te Strake. Also a warm welcome to representatives of our partner universities from within and outside the Netherlands, and the presidents of almost all Dutch universities sitting on my left side here, and of course also our business partners. A warm welcome also to our supervisory board and to all of our Maastricht University staff and students here and at home in the live stream. And of course, a warm welcome to Martin, dear Martin. Guten Tag, Freunde. Now he's already getting nervous. Welcome to this very, very special ceremony at which we, the academic community of Maastricht University, will say farewell to the man who has been our president for the past 10 years. A man who has meant so much to our university, to the city of Maastricht, and to its broader environment. A man of great vision, coupled with a great love for Europe. A man who was not afraid to embrace diversity within the executive board, even if it meant less attention at times for himself. But also a man with a short attention span. So that could be somewhat of an issue this afternoon. But you have to stay put there. You will have to listen for a bit longer than you're used to. Was wir noch zu sagen hätte, dauert mehrere Zigaretten. So to speak, freely based on Reinhard May, who sings the song Gute Nacht, Freunde, so beautifully, but who was unfortunately not able to come, and we really try to get him on stage, because it's a joint passion, at least the music that he's making for Martin and me. But he said, I'm too advanced in years to come perform here on stage. So we tried, Martin, but you'll have to do it, well, not with me. I will not start singing, I promise. Now, in tune with your great passion, I have structured my speech like an opera, with the title that I gave Martin's Gesamtkunstwerk. My German is, by the way, not so very good. I apologize already. He tried for 5 years to improve my German. That's one thing he didn't succeed in. So fear not, Martin, I will not be singing, but after this overture, in which all the themes of my story have already briefly been touched upon, we will now move on to the first act. And I know, I'll be honest, it's not a very super original idea, because your own inaugural lecture entitled The Dean as an Academic Manager, The Phantom of the Opera, has the same structure. But, as we say in the Netherlands, it's better to steal something good than to invent something bad. And in Germany, they also know this principle, besser gut geklaut und so weiter. Having said that, let's get to the first act, titled The Visionary European. Now, in this act, you have to imagine now in your mind, we see Martin sitting in his office on the Minderbroedersberg. It's beautiful architecture for those who've been there. And we see also the nearby boardroom, where his vision for Maastricht University is taking shape. His knowledge and experience in medicine and the sciences are a perfect match and of great significance for the development of our university in these areas. Together with Vice President Nick Bos, he is developing plans for the Brightland campuses. The Faculty of Sciences and Engineering is coming to life, and he's furthering the development of Campus Brussels, which makes him a welcome guest and a regular guest at the EU Commission. The partnership with the University of York is being put in the spotlight after UM had already joined 2 leading international university networks a few years earlier, the Young European Universities Network and the Worldwide Universities Network. Now, Martin also chaired the latter for a number of years with lots of energy. It's perhaps on such internationally oriented stages that we see our protagonist the most in his element. In that sense, UVA also has a special place in his heart. The Young Universities for the Future of Europe actually endorses everything that Martin is committed to. A European spirit, the aim to contribute to a more competitive, innovative, and united Europe, and the ambition to help address today's challenges. And on top of it, an inclusive university network where students from all sorts of different backgrounds should be able to join. The second act, dear audience, is titled Born to Lead. Here we see Martin painting the window frames of his house in Maastricht during the weekend. So you imagine Martin is painting. It's a drastic change of scenery. Please imagine also that he is singing while doing that. Some sea shanty perhaps, or maybe Whistle While You Work, or maybe Reinhard May, you never know. The answer of the question why the president of the university doesn't leave this to professional painters reveals that he has become more Dutch over the past 10 years than he may realize himself. But that aside, Martin and Maastricht are a very good combination. He feels at home in this city with its beautiful architecture and rich history, and he will do everything in his power to ensure that the interplay between the university and the city is as harmonious as possible during his period in office. He also likes to invest in his relationship with the Maastricht student population, whether it's about fossil fuels, Zwarte Piet, or Palestine-Israel issues. Martin seeks out dialogue. Within his university, he has also shown that even Germans can appreciate the concept of collegial management, because that's really, I'm not saying that Germans don't do that. So the atmosphere in the management team, which he has been chairing for the last 10 years, and also the executive board that he tried to chair, these two people, that has always been very constructive and very positive. And I don't doubt for a second that he will also achieve a collegial, constructive atmosphere in Bochum, with almost 4 times as many deans. We have 6 deans sitting here. That's already quite something to handle. 4 times as many deans. Oh my God, Martin. Good luck with that. At the same time, he can also be found regularly in The Hague, for instance, due to his role as member of the board of the Dutch Association of Universities, the VSNU. And especially when it comes to the internationalization of Dutch higher education, he sounds the trumpet and tries to use facts to remedy the cold feet that often seem to exist. His extensive knowledge of dossiers comes in handy here, as does his skills as a public speaker. The ease with which he pulls speeches, statements, and more out of his sleeve is perhaps the best indication of how at home he feels in the shoes of a president. No matter what he's about to tell you after my speech, Martin was born to lead. The third and final act, are you still listening, Martin? You cannot go on your iPad now, sorry. That's always on the first row, that's not possible. The third and final act is titled Sharing the Spotlight. Now you have the picture again, this scenery. It's Martin and his close colleague, Vice President Nick Bos, sitting across from a blonde woman who is not yet 40, who might want to become the new Rector Magnificus of this university. Now, unfortunately, we cannot see inside his head, so we will never know what he's actually thinking or what Nick Bos was thinking at the moment. I actually know, I'll tell you tonight over dinner. The fact is that I can stand here today as your Rector Magnificus, even as Martin's successor, because at his side and at the side of Nick Bos, I've been able to grow into my role over the past few years. And I've always admired your dedication, Martin, how you've always been there when it mattered. I've learned a lot from you. We've laughed a lot during our field trips, for instance, to the Cosmopolitan Down in the Eifel, for instance. And of course, we also sometimes clashed, although these moments were truly rare. But the fact that you gave me room to grow, even if sometimes it took some of your spotlight, only increased my respect for you. Yes, we may need some sentimental violence now maybe here, but we'll get them later, don't worry. Especially also when I consider that for a long time you had your own home base in Maastricht, but your family was far away. Plus there was also the care for your mother in Frankfurt, so I say again, hats off. In keeping with your style, because Martin always says, I have no friends, please don't kiss me. That were the lines he would always say. I will end with this personal note here and return to the closing area of this opera. Of course, this could be nothing other than Alle Menschen werden Brüder, the hymn with which we here in Maastricht usher in each new academic year. Let me also briefly explain the title of the opera, Martin's Gesamtkunstwerk. In his lifetime, the composer Richard Wagner, whom Martin very much admires, created the opera Der Ring des Nibelungen. He himself used the term Gesamtkunstwerk for this piece, referring to an opera in which the various arts come together and complement each other, from poetry, music, and dance to architecture. Now, our collegial board in recent years has been all about bringing together different talents, perspectives, and complementing each other. But also when it comes to interdisciplinary cooperation across our 6 faculties. You have made a very strong case for creating a Gesamtkunstwerk. In my opinion, our academic community, in which so many nationalities find their place, and which will hopefully grow in terms of diversity in other areas over the coming years, rightly deserves this title, Gesamtkunstwerk. Das haben Sie geschafft, with the help of many others, as you would immediately say. On to the next chapter in Bochum, where the architecture also seems to be much talked about. Maybe not as much as the beauty of Maastricht, but we know you will love it there. Dear Martin, thank you very much for everything that you've done for our university. We'll hear that many more times today. And we look very much forward now to listen to your farewell lecture, which is entitled Learning to Lead. The floor is yours.
Well, what can I say after this? Thank you very much, Rianne, and thank you for coming and joining me today in my farewell performance. When I was a postdoc and we went to these conferences, there was always the same old, mostly Ben, giving the same lecture every year. And we had this bet about 100 marks or dollars that we would get up to the microphone and ask them a question, and we would start by saying, thank you for your last lecture. Anyway, it's going to be my last lecture today and my function as president. And I've thought for quite some time on what I should talk today. And I chose to focus on one of the most difficult and probably misunderstood topics in the university, and that is leadership. It's a suspicious topic as one of the core principles of universities, academic freedom, a concept which does not necessarily implies a certain structure and certainly not a rigid organization or governance. University is neither a people's republic nor a cookie factory, as I have said earlier, but an organization that needs to provide space for creativity, curiosity, and personal development. Therefore, my story today will not praise university management or administration, but will focus on leadership in a broader sense. First, I will discuss the role and the mission that universities and their constituents, staff and students alike, should play for the benefit of society. I strongly believe that we as academic communities must take on that responsibility and lead the way. The famous question asked by Stefan Collini in his book, What are universities for?, has for me a simple answer. We must serve the common good. It is in this context that I would like to discuss the commitment and the leadership that universities should take in our time. And as the title of my talk suggests, I will draw on my experience here in 10 years at Maastricht University. Let me discuss first how I see the role in leadership that universities should claim as responsible organizations. Historically, universities are resilient structures, and if you look on the list of institutions that are older than 500 years, you will find many universities among them. Universities have survived wars, disasters, the plague, and one could have the feeling that they will continue to exist whatever is happening around them. However, I'm afraid that this feeling of relative safety is misleading and not universal. Academic freedom is under pressure, with the disturbing situation unraveling at universities in Afghanistan as the most recent example how academia can easily become under attack. But we do not have to point a finger at places far away. One can see such threats also occurring closer to home. Think of the move of the Central European University from Budapest to Vienna, forced by authoritarian politics. Less dramatic, but not less alarming, are the tendencies also in our country to classify universities and academic institutions as part of an elite that is distant from society and is indoctrinating rather than educating our youth. This is even more concerning in a period where we face the threat that we slide into a post-factual society where beliefs, emotions, and convenience arguments are replacing facts. Since these factors play an increasingly worrisome role in public debate, I believe it is necessary for universities not to passively watch these events, but to play an active role as communicators and as guardians of factual information. Academic thinking, the pursuit of quality in research and teaching, and scientific discourse are basic requirements that we cannot let be compromised by political or ideological forces. The rise of populism, the infiltration of the debate by alternative facts, a fashionable word for lies, are becoming more prevalent than rationale and are signs that we need not only to worry, but also take the lead in actively joining the discussion. This role that science has to play in this context has been brilliantly addressed by the former chair of the German Research Association, Peter Strohschneider, in his speech entitled Science in the Times of Populism, given at the German National Academy of Sciences, Leopoldina, where we focus on these recent developments. He argued that science and scientists must not fall for a position of putting forward another extreme, a so-called scientocratic system, where science is seen as a dogmatic version of truth, the only truth. To quote Strohschneider, to enter the fray for pluralistic modernity and against vulgar enemies of research, students, scientists, and researchers can only do so if they do not see themselves as an authority of possession of truth, but as the representatives of the rational methodological search for truth. I could not agree more, as this also means that scientists must refrain from joining the chorus of those that are trying to influence public opinion through one-liners and Twitter statements of black and white statements. To quote Strohschneider again, I am firmly convinced that the sciences can do justice to the connection between freedom and responsibility, especially in times of populist anti-intellectualism and autocratic hostility to science, only with careful self-limitation and self-distance, if you like, with honesty and modesty, end of quote. I also firmly believe that we as academic institutions must not only take this active role in explaining our way of working, we must also reach out to society and do so on a level playing field. Citizen science is not simply a new buzzword. It is a necessity to align us with the community, to listen and explain what we do to our mutual benefit. That is why the explanation of the meaning of scientific results and the scientific method to the public is as important as the publication of our findings in academic journals and books. How can we link public needs and interests to scientific questions? Looking for a Maastricht example, I believe that the Brightlands concept is the right way to link our educational and research strategy to the needs of the region and the well-being of its citizens. Of course, with an understanding that the challenges that we are addressing are global ones. By interacting with the public and private sector, as well as with the people in this region in a so-called quadruple helix, is the recipe to show the value of the university as a knowledge institution in the middle of society, making a contribution to the common good. Positioning the university as an active player in and for the community is important. While we need to transcend the walls of the university to reach out to our immediate neighborhood, we also need to cross borders in a greater and wider context. It should not come as a surprise to you, and Rianne, you referred to that already, that I believe that universities need to do this by taking a leading role in internationalization and by connecting to other knowledge institutions across our borders. We have defined Maastricht University as an international network university. Next to regional and national networks, I believe that given the history and the geographical location of this city, the European perspective as a guiding principle for choosing our partners is only logical. At the same time, one has to ask oneself, is this European focus not a bit old-fashioned? We have experienced Brexit and increasing frictions between West and Central European member states. We like to complain about rules, about bureaucracy, and about being lectured by Brussels. But the problems and criticisms mentioned above should not obscure the fact that the idea of a European university is still something we need to engage with. Our universities are rooted in a common cultural tradition since the beginnings about 1,000 years ago in Bologna. A common European house for universities is relevant not only because of our history and traditions, but also because of a culture characterized by freedom of speech and thought, autonomy, and our role to provide an open learning environment for the citizens of the future. This is a value that we need to continue to provide. Looking at the world, as I've mentioned, these basic principles defining university are no longer a given and need to be protected. Therefore, we have to realize that our competition is not found in our country or another European country, but in a global context. Strong universities are competing for best talent, and alongside the academic powerhouses in the United States, powerful academic clusters are developing in other regions, for example, in Asia. That is why it's important that we work together to bring the European spirit and the strengths of the European University as a unique selling point into this discussion. But it also means that we should be able to accept the reciprocity by learning in Europe from other cultures, transcending our colonial history. It comes also with other challenges. If you want to create a true European ecosystem of universities, we need to address equality and equity in European higher education and move away from being labeled as self-defined elitists. In order to create a future European university landscape, we need to address inequality not only between old and new member states, but also inequality in the student population. The Youth Alliance, Young Universities for the Future of Europe, which really developed from another alliance, Jeroen, that we initiated to respond to the call by the European Commission to create the new university in Europe and to create European university alliances, is addressing this issue. Together with 9 other European universities, from Finland to Cyprus, from Spain to Poland, and with several non-university partners, we have developed a new model for cooperation. UFA attempts to bring change and transform the European higher education by becoming a leading model of a student-centered, open and inclusive European university. In this way, UFA makes Europe-wide higher education a reality for local and international students alike, students of all social backgrounds. UFA students are able to create their own curriculum as the backbone of an equitable, diverse and effective education system that recognizes and optimally fosters individual talent. To overcome inequalities while at the same time reducing the CO2 footprint of traveling, we have created a digital mobility platform, the UFA Virtual Campus. In this system, students can listen to a lecture in Maastricht in the morning, follow a course in Cyprus in the afternoon, or learn a new language in Poland in the evening. We also have implemented the UFA Star system, where students can get credits, a kind of micro-credentials for societal engagement, internships in the public or private sectors, and for societal engagement or learning a new language. In this context, the Alliance will provide students with unique opportunities to be trained in an inclusive research and work-based learning ecosystem, leading to interdisciplinarity and intersectoral knowledge and skills. By breaking down the barriers between society and academia, youth is also involved in being a place where students gain professional and cultural experiences relating to the different regional contexts across Europe that will be recognized in the beginning in diploma supplements, in the future, hopefully, in a true European diploma. Like here in Maastricht, other partners in this network have already built strong quadruple helix models of open innovation together with their local governance, enterprises, and civil society, and want to go one step further by linking across the EU for the mutual benefit of all European citizens. Ultimately, UFA and the other European alliances that have been founded, and I know many, I think virtually all Dutch universities are involved in one of those, and also the university in Bochum is part of such a network. I think by bringing the expertise and the experience from these alliances together, will really move our understanding of the European university context forward. Our experience in and with UFA shows that learning and educational leadership is reciprocal. While being designed in part based on the Maastricht educational philosophy, our university has in exchange been stimulated by many examples provided by our partners in the Alliance. This experience has stimulated to us in our new strategic program to call ourselves the European Universities of the Netherlands, and by no means, my dear colleagues, not the only European University of the Netherlands. But of course, we want not to be only Europe-focused, but we want to use Europe as a platform to really understand and interact with the world. In the last part of my lecture, I want to talk about leadership, and also I want to talk about people. And that's the most difficult part, of course. As I've explained with the UFA example, leadership must be mutual, reciprocal, and good leaders have also to be good followers. Traditionally, leadership has always been personality-based and considered a one-way road. Leaders were there to be followed by others. Today, this vertical view of leadership is an outdated concept, which may work in the army, but is inappropriate for academia. In universities, leadership must be multidirectional and network-based, based on relationships, networks, communities, and cultures. As Jonathan Grant, the former vice principal of King's College, points out in his recent book, The New Power University, this also needs that we need to restrain structures, boundaries, and rituals that we are accustomed to in a traditional university. In order for this to work, we need to operate on the basic concept of mutual trust, learning to trust each other and knowing what to do to be trusted. Trust is also a two-way road. Based on this concept, I strongly believe that leadership in universities must be horizontal and indeed multidirectional. The development of our recent strategic programs here in Maastricht is a good example for taking this lead together. They have been developed by channeling the ideas and the vision of the whole university, staff and students alike, while the executive board provided a frame for the discussion, a reality check, and took on the role as a moderator. In general, I've experienced this university, as an excellent universe where community leadership is given space to thrive. There are many examples for that. Students who took the initiative to support refugees coming to the cities, climate activists who challenge us to take a more progressive stand in designing a modern sustainability policy, the Maastricht Young Academy, who inspires us to be an institution that needs to care for its staff and students. It is our community who responds to the challenges and takes the lead in questions such as work pressure, fighting against discrimination and racism, or within the new concept of recognition and rewards, where, of course, Rianne played a very instrumental role, just to name a few examples. There are many more who take charge and strive to induce positive change. I see many good things in this, but we also have to be careful. Sometimes I'm worried as the increasing polarization of society that I already mentioned is also infiltrating academic institutions. In order to make true progress, it's essential that we maintain an atmosphere of mutual respect, politeness, and acceptance of a diversity of opinions. Only then can we find solutions together. I feel that we have so far done a good job at this university to achieve this, and I'm sure that we will continue to do so. Now I notice that some of my colleagues in academic management get a bit restless. Did I just propose to get rid of executive boards or faculty deans in the university as a whole? And indeed, some people have suggested that universities could probably exist without any top-level executives. Relax. We also have a role to play, but we can be most effective by applying the principles of horizontal leadership as well. Some of you may remember my introductory lecture entitled, and Rianne mentioned it already, The Dean as an Academic Manager, the Phantom of the Opera. Academic thinking based on scientific discourse, scholarship, and creativity can certainly be stereotyped as being the antipode of the efficiency-oriented management style of the business world. That is why I called ourselves phantoms, because we take on these roles for the most part by rising through the ranks and making a transition from scientists, educators, policymakers to roles in university leadership. The principles I've mentioned then are still valid today when it comes to academic leadership and management of university. And I once again would like to quote Jeffrey Buller, who defined the two most important principles of academic management as follows. Quote, first, it requires creating a working environment in which individuals feel safe to provide their perspectives on various issues and understand that you will agree or disagree with these views according to the argument's merits, not according to the individual advancing it. Second, it requires fostering an environment where the overall mission of the institution, rather than the personal convenience of its individual members, is the guiding principles behind all deliberations. I can say without hesitation that this always has been the guiding principle the executive board members that I had the pleasure to work with in these past years has followed. We have understood that executive boards are not the generals of an army, but more impresarios, or to come back to my favorite world of musical theater, directors of an opera or conductors of an orchestra. As I've said before, the best management approach in the university is dialogue, asking questions, listening, finding answers together in an effort of co-creation with faculty, staff, and students. And in many cases, it also means having the courage to implement out-of-the-box ideas. And I think if I look back at the history, without the bold decisions of some executive boards and this university, we probably would not have a University College Maastricht, the Brightlands campus system, or the Pathfinder for the Einstein telescope. Is this an easy job? Contrary to common belief, no. University presidents, magnificent rectors, and executive board members are not the fan favorites in the academic community, in public politics, or the press. That is okay, because somebody has to take responsibility, taking a stand for the organization, protect it and defend it when it is needed. This is not an easy task, and it takes energy for 7 days a week. As a general principle, you have to operate on the basis that you cannot always be successful, but that you have tried. You also have to accept that you are vulnerable as a leader, and that it's okay to fail if you have honestly tried. And you have to ask for advice and input from others, colleagues, deans, students, and staff. Moreover, it's okay that you say sorry when you make a mistake. In the end, if you follow these principles, it is not such a hard job. Openness and vulnerability are important aspects of leadership. It has always been my principle and that of my colleagues, and it has brought us certainly not always, but often success. Success for our university and our community. In the end, allow me to give a final piece of advice to those who are in or aspiring to be leaders, as executive board members, deans, professors, staff, and students. Always walk straight and walk tall. We all need to respond to external pressures, rules and regulations, changes in policies, new ministers, political pressure in our positions. And to illustrate what could happen if we're not watchful, I will use an example that I've actually used in a speech a few years ago, but I think it's still very fitting. Imagine you are a person trying to buy a suit, so you go see a tailor. When the tailor has made the suit and fitted on you, you realize that the left arm is too short. Don't worry, says the tailor. Just bend your right shoulder a bit forward, and this is resolved. But now you realize that the pants are too long on your right leg. Don't worry, says the tailor. Just bend your hip to the left. See? Now it's fitting perfectly. You pay the bill, and with great difficulty walking, leave the shop. Two people see you from the other side of the street. And one says, look at this poor cripple, he barely can walk. Says the other, yes, but he has a great tailor. Therefore, my advice to my colleague is to watch out for this. Make sure you always can walk straight, and make sure that you can always be the master of your domain. This brings me to the end of my lecture. I've tried to look at the concept of leadership from several angles. Leadership that universities must provide for society in these days, but also leadership by individuals in the university and on all levels, students, staff, faculty, deans, and the members of the executive boards. Leadership is multidirectional, certainly in a university. In my 10 years as president of Maastricht University, I've learned a lot about how to be a better leader. Thank you for allowing me to learn from you. Before I have to wrap up my lecture, of course, I have to thank many people. And I cannot name everybody, but I think I have to do it now. And I start by the people I spend most of my time with. And these are the secretaries and office assistants who worked with me over the years. Stephanie, Joke, Linda, and Janice, thank you very much for really making my life easier. I would like to thank the international group in the Academic Affairs Department and also the youth management team who really helped me to bring this international part of the university forward. I thank, of course, the supervisory board of Maastricht University for having the trust in me to stick out for the 10 years that I have been here. I thank the participatory bodies, the University Council, which is always challenging the university board, the deans and the management team. I myself have been a dean, so I know how difficult it is sometimes to mediate and to moderate between the interests of professors in a faculty and the executive board. I thank, of course, also our partners in the public sector, the cities in Limburg, Maastricht, Heerlen, Venlo, and Sittard-Geleen, just to name a few with whom we collaborate excellently over the years. I'd like to thank the province of Limburg, who has supported our sometimes crazy ideas in joint ventures. Without you, the Brightlands system would never have been developed in such a way. I would like to thank my colleagues in the other universities in the Netherlands and the WSNU, or as we know, Team NL. It has been always a pleasure to work with you, and certainly we probably later in the day will talk a bit more about that. And of course, my colleagues from our partner universities, rectors from other networks. And of course, a special thanks to the colleagues from the Ruhr-Universität Bochum who had the courage to take me on, and I'm looking forward, of course, to working with you. All friends, of course, who made it here, coming from far and close, and of course, a special greetings to my global family, who is partially here in the room, but also is watching this on the live stream. So thank you for joining me. And last but not least, of course, I have to thank the executive board members who worked with me over the years, Gerard Mols, André Postema, Luc Soete, and of course I have to say a special word to my current and longest serving colleagues, Rianne and Nick. Nick is certainly the person I've worked most with at this university. You were one of the first ones I met. I think you played a very important role for me coming here. And I think you have been really the stable factor in these executive boards we worked in. It's a brilliant combination of, on the one hand, a strategic vision, but also attention for detail. Both are important. And I think the many crises we had to master and the vision would have not been possible without that. Thank you very much. Then, of course, Rianne, a special word to you. You mentioned already something when you came here in your opera. I think it's a great scoop that you also will become my successor in the job as president of this university. It's a wonderful development. I think you will certainly, as somebody with a different vision, a vision from I would say a different generation, example for many young people, for women, for diversity. You will write a new chapter together with Nick and the rector, whoever that will be in this university, and I'm quite confident that it will be an excellent chamber. And I said it's a scoop, because by nominating you as my successor, the executive board, the supervisory board probably could prevent that you probably move on to other things, and you're well thought after. So thank you for staying, and thank you for commitment to this university. Tot slot is het uiteraard meer dan gepast dat ik afrond in de taal van dit land, en dat hoeven al die Duitsers hier niet te horen. Het was een buitengewoon grote eer voor mij in de laatste 10 jaar voor u voorzitter van deze universiteit te mogen zijn. Hartelijk dank dat u mij met open armen en zonder voorbehoud heeft ontvangen. Als eerste buitenlander in deze positie aan een Nederlandse universiteit was dit altijd een bijzonder grote verplichting voor mij het goed te doen. Ik hoop dat dit gelukt is. De Universiteit Maastricht, de stad, de regio en de provincie Limburg zijn ongetwijfeld een prachtige omgeving om verder samen iets te bereiken. Ik wens u hierbij veel succes. En als u vraagt waarom ik u toch verlaat, als het zo mooi hier is, dan kan ik als antwoord een Duits spreekwoord citeren. Man muss aufhören, wenn es am schönsten ist. Jetzt ist es am schönsten. Vielen Dank für alles. Ich heb gezegd.
Dear Martin, let me see if this one is starting to work. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you very much for this beautiful valedictory address, as we call that in academic terms. Now, this was just one applause that you're now receiving. There will be several more to come. The next part of this ceremony is full of surprises for Martin. He's always in control, but from this moment on till the end of the ceremony, you just have to let it happen and enjoy what will happen. We'll have some music, of course. That's why we have this all set up for you. And that's what we are going to start with. And then there will be some speeches, also followed by music. Sometimes I will be back on stage, sometimes I will not. And the persons who are going to speak know, hopefully, when to come to the stage. Otherwise, we'll give them a sign. But we'll start with some music. And of course, we start with opera music. Because as you heard from my speech and from Martin's speech, that is a big passion for Martin. And I'm very pleased to announce our musical act for today. And they will come back 3 times. And at the end of the ceremony, I will say a few more words about them. But for now, I would like to introduce the mezzo-soprano Veronique van der Meijden, bariton Jonky Eurlings, and pianist Tamir Chassol. Please come to our stage. I have no idea where they come from. Ah, that's where they come. Wonderful.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear Martin, on behalf of all deans, I want to thank you, Martin, for your leadership. And of course, your leadership steered us through several crises, but you did far more than just keeping the show on the road. In German, you have this distinction between verwalten und gestalten, technical management versus vision. And you, Martin, you are the embodiment of both. And we, as a university, we profited enormously from that. I'm not going through the list of all the achievements of Martin Paul. Others will do that certainly, and to a large extent they are obvious. Rather, I would like to address this issue. What are the key features of Martin's successful leadership here at Maastricht University? What will we dearly miss now that Martin is sadly enough going to leave us? And there are 3 points to consider here. For one thing, Martin is sharply focused on the big issues, the overarching themes, the Leitmotiven. Some call it a small span of attention, but I do not agree. I'm a psychologist, I know what I'm talking about. It is the focus on the big themes. He doesn't like endless and misty discussions about trivial details, and that makes every meeting with him quite a refreshing experience because it shapes discussions and decision-making in the direction of the high-stake issues. There is a story circling around about Martin's aversion of insignificant trifles, and I'm not sure whether it is true or not. Still, I'm giving you the short version of the story, because the story in principle could be true, and the deans in Bochum, if they are here, they might benefit from it. So here we go. There was this department chair who had scheduled himself a 30-minute meeting with Martin, when Martin had just arrived as the fresh new dean of the FHML. And this department chair had brought with him a PowerPoint presentation with 78 slides. And when he was at slide 9, showing the number of coffee machines in the department, Martin tried to signal to him in a sympathetic way that he should speed up. And Martin used this nonverbal signal, nonverbal gesture that is recognized all around the world, but not with this guy. So he continued, slide after slide. So what Martin did next was he pretended to fall asleep. But still, the guy didn't get the message and went on to a next series of slides presenting an in-depth analysis of staff members participating in the university bicycle plan. And at that point, according to the story, Martin rose and said to the guy in an accent imitating the late Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, "Wil jij ruzie? Wollen Sie Ärger?" And now the guy immediately understood and stopped, and the discussion could be shifted to issues that were really of importance. Ladies and gentlemen, I repeat, I don't know to what extent the story has been fictionalized, but it tells us as much about the extreme Dutch tolerance for mundane elaborations as it tells us about Martin's effective way of coping with that. Arguably, this department chair could have known better. Martin, it was already told, is a connoisseur of Wagner operas and the novels of Arthur Schnitzler. And Wagner and Schnitzler are not precisely known for their preoccupation with daily hassles. Their work covers the big questions. And in the context of leadership, a sharp focus on the big issues is important, if only because we know from an abundance of research that information overload and the resulting difficulty separating signal from noise is the biggest threat to effective decision-making. Which brings me to a second feature of Martin's leadership. If you listen carefully to what he says, and his lecture a few minutes ago was an example of that. If you read his columns closely, it becomes quite obvious that in his opinion, science is far more than just a collection of technical books and papers describing the corpus of knowledge. In the universe of Martin Pall, there is a strong moral dimension to science, which should be taken into account and which should be treated seriously. Years ago, I visited Martin, and I wanted to discuss with him whether it is fair to criticize apolitical scientists who stayed in the German research institutes during the Nazi era. And at that point in time, my position was we should be more lenient in our judgments about these people. And when I was making my point, Martin sat there, quietly listening to me, and then grabbed a book from the bookshelves behind him. And he gave me the book and said I might want to read it before endorsing any opinion on the matter. And this is the book. It is entitled Verfolgte Deutsche Pharmakologen 1933-1945. And when the book appeared, Martin was the president of the German Association of Pharmacologists and Toxicologists. And in that quality, he wrote the introduction to the book. And yes, I read the book. It was sobering. It contains the life descriptions of numerous German pharmacologists who, after the Nazis rose to power, either had to flee Germany or who died in a concentration camp because they were Jewish or because they were critics of the regime. And the bottom line is, this tragedy was not only the work of the Nazis, but also of department chairs, of deans, of university officials, looking away and staying neutral and staying apolitical. And yes, I changed my mind profoundly due to the book that Martin gave me, a book that reminds us of the responsibility that scientists and scholars have for the world outside the university walls. And this consideration is a core value for Martin, and many of his columns are peppered with telling examples of this, taken from literature, history, and medicine. Which brings me to the third and final point I want to make about Martin's leadership, and that is that Martin wants to cross borders. The borders between the university and the outside world, the borders between disciplines within the university, and the borders between countries. I guess this has everything to do with Martin's own background, belonging to a post-war generation for whom the wall between West and East Germany seemed to be a fact of life, growing up in Saarland, close to the French border, working in a research field that had its silos. Anyway, many of his columns are also about his deep-felt motivation to create something new by crossing borders, to create something new by crossing borders. And that is exactly what Martin did in Maastricht on a very impressive scale, acting as a silo breaker. Dear Martin, by focusing on the big issues, by stressing our societal responsibility, and by motivating us to cross borders, you helped us enormously. You helped us getting more of our university into the world and more of the world into our university. You truly have been, Martin, a strong wind in the sails of Maastricht University. And on behalf of all the deans, I want to thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Harold. It's now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker to you, Professor Krömer. I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong now. Is the Chief Executive Officer of the Charité, the university where Martin came from, and one of the largest European hospitals, also university hospitals. And you should know that he has known Martin for a very long part of Martin's life, so it's also a close friend, if I may say so. And you also addressed the audience when Martin had his inaugural address in Maastricht 13 years ago. So we're very honored that you're back with us to say goodbye to Martin.
Martin, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, if you get the task by Rihanna to talk in 10 minutes about the life of a highly successful colleague and friend, there's only one chance to succeed with that task. You have to find a common theme, something that aligns an entire life under a specific topic. And I'm really impressed that if scientific people take a task, they often come to the same result, because I came to the same result as the previous speaker. Because if you look at the 63 years of Martin and go through all his moves and achievements, there's, from my point of view, one thing that really is present throughout the entire time. It is his willingness and his ability to cross borders in all kinds of issues. I will try within the next 10 minutes to tackle this issue, namely Martin Powell crossing borders in family and education, crossing borders in jobs, and crossing borders in personal relationships, both with peers and students. Martin was born on March 7, 1958 in the Saar region, which is a rather poor part of Germany, being frequently shuttled back and forth between Germany and France. His father was not highly interested in school, was rather interested in soccer, and had a vision for his life to leave the country early to move to the United States. But however, the father never did it. His mother, which was unusual, went early after the war to France as an au pair. Together, they spent their life in Germany. So both of the parents had already the attitude of crossing borders, but never made it. They managed, however, to successfully implant such plans into their children. Martin has one sister. Such the wish to get out of regular life, cross borders, may have been in their genes, or at least in their epigenetic fraction. There are, however, some prerequisites if you want to get out. The first thing is a decent high school exam. In between, Martin was a really bad scholar, threatened by complete failure. Once he realized the importance of this step, he crossed the border from laziness to work and ended up with the best exam in the entire school. Then the next question arises, what to do with this exam? On one hand, he always was a very social person, interested in human interactions. On the other hand, the school had made him highly interested in science. Therefore, it was a closed thought to go to medical school with a clear-cut idea to become a clinician, work and interact with patients and simply help. There was, however, a small obstacle. In that time, in Germany, we had a common draft to the military, and like many of us, Martin was not really eager to follow this draft. One way to get around was to engage in science already during med school. Therefore, in the narrowest sense, he crossed borders, went to San Diego for a year. Later, again, for avoiding the same goal, he went a couple of years to Boston as a postdoctoral fellow. Heribert Schunkert is here. He found their lifelong friends in this time in the US. In terms of science, it was really highly successful. And aside from the draft avoidance, he was dragged to science by a really fascinating mentor who became a friend for his life. The name is Detlef Ganten. Detlef was by then already an internationally highest-ranking researcher in blood pressure regulation, transferring this particular interest to Martin. Martin was attracted by Detlef Ganten's personality and crossed again a border in deciding not to become a clinician, but rather concentrate on research. This had major consequences in terms of his professional life. Both Detlef and Martin got job offers in Berlin, initially at different institutions. Martin was recruited as chair of pharmacology at the Free University of Berlin. He was the youngest chair at that time. As it is often the case with young people, he was eager to change things, complained all the time about everything in the faculty, until somebody told him if he doesn't stop complaining, he should become dean of the medical school. Again, he crossed this border from clinics to science, from science to admin. And the subsequent 10 years, he was staying in Berlin. That was a particularly interesting move because his mentor, Detlef Ganten, became CEO of the newly founded Charité. And at the same time, Martin worked as his dean. So the master and his servant, so to speak, both being pharmacologists, were ruling Germany's largest academic medical center. And being very consequent, Martin realized that it was not possible to concentrate both in science and admin in parallel, and decided therefore to put his entire effort into the administration part. For a while, things went well. Then, however, the situation started to deteriorate in Berlin. There was a vast reduction of the research money provided by the state of Berlin by a total of 30%, together with a couple of other things which really made life difficult for innovative administrators at that institution. And like a sign from heaven, there was an offer by the University of Maastricht asking Martin Powell whether he would be interested to be dean of the med school. So again, he played the theme of his life and crossed a national border, moving from Germany to the Netherlands, and within no time he learned the language. We heard a part of that just a couple of minutes ago. His CV says that he's a professional Dutch speaker today, which I can't judge, but you can. He became the first German dean of a Dutch medical school, which he successfully managed to be for 3 years. After that, Maastricht University elected him as the first non-Dutch national as president of the university, a function which he had for 10 consecutive years, being re-elected twice. In his tenure, he had a couple of large projects, which again were cross-border activities. One of them is the Brightlands concept, which combines science and economy on the campus structures dealing with health, digitalization, agriculture, and sustainability. The motto of Brightlands, if you look at their homepage, is crossing borders. The other large thing Martin managed was establishing international networks in which most the universities gained lots of reputation, among them the Young University for the Future of Europe, the Worldwide University Network, and the Association of Academic Health Centers, a US organization. At each of these professional, international, cross-border organizations, Martin was either the chair of the entire thing or in the governing structures, indicating his great acceptance in the community. Now, in 2021, Martin approaches his most likely final border crossing in the somewhat opposite direction. From November 1, he will be president of the University of Bochum. Interestingly, the area of Bochum is characterized in part by a similar way like the Saarland, where Martin was born and raised. Again, it's not the richest part of our country. Many of the students have a migration background. On the other hand, Bochum University was the first university newly founded in West Germany after the war. Yesterday, a Nobel Prize was awarded to a researcher from Bochum with affiliations to this university. So again, he would come to a place where his leadership, his ideas will be both necessary and accepted. Throughout his life, Martin has in particular across-the-board activities in interpersonal relations. Aside from the just mentioned wide professional networks, it is of paramount importance to him to guide the young and the next generation towards a certain type of personal interactions. And I just cite a statement out of one of his recent interviews. He says, "We must teach our students why it's important to treat each other well. Tolerance and respect for other opinions are important competencies. We also have to listen to people who just think differently about things." Overall, it is difficult to wrap up a friend's professional life. Maybe you agree that the cross-border issue is a dominant topic in the successful career of Martin Powell. On the other hand, aside from the personality, which takes the opportunities, I think you have to have institutions which give chances to unusual characters in order to fulfill their mission. This part of credit really goes to the University of Maastricht, an institution which during our interactions deeply impressed me by both openness and professionalism. The same credit in the future goes to Bochum University, which elected him as the new president. Although this might be his final border crossing, I'm convinced that this additional chapter will again be a highly successful part in Martin Powell's life. If I would have touched his private life, which I didn't do, I would have mentioned that his wife is American, his 2 kids were raised in Germany, Holland, and the United States, so the cross-border story of the Powell family will continue into the next generation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Krummer. Dear all, dear Martin, it's my honor and my pleasure to award the Dr. Tanzpenning, which is the highest distinction at Maastricht University, rewarding significant contributions towards the development of this university. Schenk Tanz was a politician and one of the founders of the Rijksuniversiteit Limburg, which became Maastricht University in 1996. He was the first chair of the executive board and is a predecessor of Martin Paul, whose services to him we are honoring today. After studying medicine in Heidelberg and earning his PhD in pharmacology in San Diego, Martin Paul embarked on an impressive scientific career that saw him publish more than 200 papers in the fields of clinical and experimental pharmacology, molecular medicine, and cardiovascular diseases. As a researcher, teacher, and manager, he was active at Harvard University, Brigham's and Women's Hospital in Boston, the Max Delbrück Center for Molecular Medicine in Berlin, the Freie Universität in Berlin, and the Charité Medical Center in Berlin, where he served as Dean of the Medical Faculty and Vice Chairman of the Board. In 2008, he came to Maastricht as Dean of the Faculty of Health, Medicine and Life Sciences, and was Vice Chairman of the Maastricht University Medical Center. He became Chair of the Executive Board in 2011, and he has served as board member of many national and international associations and networks. Martin has played an extremely important role in positioning Maastricht University as a European university in the Netherlands. Under his leadership, UM has joined or set up numerous international networks such as the World Universities Network, WUN, Young European Research Universities Network, YERUN, the York Maastricht Partnership, the Association of Academic Health Centers International, and, of course, the Young University for the Future of Europe, UFE. These have enabled numerous scientists and students to work together across borders. UFE actually is a good recent example of his dedication to internationalization, his social commitment, and his leadership quality coming together. One of the first models for a European university, UFE is an incredibly ambitious project financed by the European Commission, coordinated by UM and chaired by Martin Paul. Students design their own degree programs from courses offered across the 10 member universities. The diploma recognizes not only academic achievement, but also mobility, language learning, professional training, and volunteering. Each university cooperates with local authorities, businesses, and civil society organizations to allow students full immersion as well as a chance to contribute to the region in which they are staying. Martin Paul has also progressed the idea of international openness and European connection on the national level. For example, as a member of the board of the Verenigde Samenwerking van Nederlandse Universiteiten, the VSNU, and as an advisory board member of NUFIC. Even when social and political tides sometimes seem to turn against the international outlook we stand for, he stuck to his vision, saving the knowledge that international cooperation is the only way to find solutions to societal challenges, and that the future of the Netherlands and Europe go hand in hand. Closer to home, Martin Paul has also effectively expanded our cooperation with governments, businesses, and other educational institutions in the region. The Brightland campuses are a prime example. They focus on technical innovation under the motto, knowledge crossing borders. Brightland is crucial to Limburg's economy and illustrates how science can create a better society. The great legacy of Martin Paul's presidency is connections, connecting UM with other universities across the globe, with many partner institutions across Europe, and with the business community, knowledge institutes, and the government in our region. The Executive Board and the University Council consider his outstanding contribution to Maastricht University worthy of the Dr. Tanz Medal, which you now have the honor to award Professor Dr. Martin Paul. Martin, if I may invite you. Ja, zit zo. Gaat het? Ja.
Bravo signor padrone, ora incomincio a capire il mistero e a veder schietto tutto il vostro progetto. A Londra è vero, voi ministro, io corriero, e la Susanna, secreta ambasciatrice, non sarà, Figaro il dice. S'el vuol ballare, signor Contino, s'el vuol ballare, signor Contino, il chitarrino le suonerò, il chitarrino le suonerò, sì, le suonerò, sì, le suonerò. Se vuol venire nella mia scuola la capriola le segnerò. Se vuol venire nella mia scuola la capriola le segnerò, sì, le segnerò, sì, le segnerò. Saprò, ma piano, meglio arcano dissimulando scorpir potrò. L'arte scrivendo, l'arte addoblando, di qua fuggendo, di là sessando, tutte le macchine rovescerò. L'arte scrivendo, l'arte addoblando, di qua fuggendo, di là sessando, tutte le macchine rovescerò, tutte le macchine rovescerò, tutte le macchine rovescerò. Se vuol ballare, signor Contino, se vuol ballare, signor Contino, il chitarrino le suonerò, il chitarrino le suonerò, sì, le suonerò, sì, le suonerò.
Good afternoon. Dear members of the UM Executive Board, dear members of the UM Supervisory Board, dear family members, friends and colleagues of Martin, and particularly dear Martin. On behalf of the Executive Board of the Maastricht University Medical Center, I'm honored to speak a few words to you, Martin, on this very special day. We are thankful. The academic community of Maastricht regrets to say goodbye to an incredibly leading and visionary person. Martin, the Maastricht UMC Plus as it is today is only so because of your ideas, your influence, and your purpose. Without the university and the connection of scientific research, academic education, and patient care, there wouldn't be an academic hospital in Maastricht. And your vision and inspiration of strategic connecting even extended to a real UMC, the youngest in the Netherlands, but not an unimportant one. We have grown up, and we still do, and we are aware of all the possibilities, power in that connection, also because of the close proximity of faculty and clinics. This is where fundamental research leads to innovation that benefits, not only for our patients, but also leads to innovations that have great society impact. For example, without good knowledge of brain function and brain structure, we can't perform deep brain stimulation on Parkinson's disease patients. Or without understanding of human behavior, we can't improve lifestyle for a healthy living. And without a unique Maastricht way of education, we can't train the medical specialists for the future. This is what we call from bench to bedside and beyond. And these are just a few examples to show how the connection as Maastricht University and Maastricht UMC Plus do have substantial scientific and socio-economic impact. Anyone living in the beautiful city of Maastricht or at the province of Limburg should be very proud of that. Martin, you was at the base of taking our collaboration to the next level. We officially tightened the conjunction in 2008 between the academic hospital and the Faculty of Health, Medicine and Life Sciences. The University Medical Center, Plus, was established. And it was not a coincidence that exactly in the same year, Martin was appointed as a dean of the mentioned faculty FHML. As dean, he became vice president of the University Medical Center as well. In 2011, Martin left our board and his successor, Professor Albert Scherber, joined. Martin became, you all know, president of the UM Executive Board. In the next years, Martin and former Maastricht UMC Plus president Guy Peters kept building and forging Maastricht's health profile. The staff of the faculty and the hospital easily attached, and the research school were connected in a constructive manner. To tighten it even further, Martin, together with former Maastricht UMC Plus president Professor Marja van Dier, launched our orange heart-shaped logo. That was in 2015. To highlight our deep connection, we chose the same font, color blue, as was known in the UM logo. We all had a beating heart for the UMC Plus, and this heart, Martin, will beat in you forever, I'm sure. In 2030, together with the province of Limburg and Zuidhogeschool, the Kennisas Limburg was established. And together with other partners like DSM, for example, the Kennisas had a leading role in the formation of the base for the 4 Brightland campuses. And with thanks to these campuses, our region is leading in innovation and gaining knowledge on the topics of health, material science, smart services, and food. Very important. While again, these fields have huge society impact and benefits, also for the hospital. For instance, we improve patients' outcome by using and sharing clinical data, or by the search and test of new materials that can be used for better drug delivery or as food products for a healthier lifestyle. The Kennisas and the Brightland campuses are perfect examples of Martin as an excellent network builder with a broad and multidisciplinary view. And this view is not limited by any border. We also heard it this afternoon. And it was also already mentioned today by Nick Bos, his leading roles in the Young European Research University Network, the YERUM, the worldwide university of Europe. One and a young university for the future of Europe. His role endorsed his qualities and as leading visionary with an international scope. The UM and the UMC Plus were also among the first members of the branch of the International Association of Academic Health Centers. It was Martin who built and enlarged this community of international university medical centers, for which he also received the Distinguished Service Award in 2020. Martin, many times you said, as a university, we are different than other Dutch universities, and we have our own DNA. You emphasize the power of that difference in any place and any situation. And that is exactly what makes you an outstanding leader of the academic community. And I'm convinced that Rianne also shares the same Maastricht DNA and will continue to be proud of that difference. Dear Martin, I would like to thank you for all your work and all your efforts, building our academic health profile, building of international networks, and for passing on the Maastricht DNA for a healthier future, based on knowledge and innovation. And therefore, it's a great honor that I would like to reward you with the Maastricht UMC Plus Award. On behalf of the Maastricht UMC Plus Executive Board, I wish you all the best, personally and at Ruhr Universiteit Bochum. Could you please join Martin?
Thank you very much, Helen, for this also honor giving to Martin. We're not there yet, Martin, talking about span of attention. No, I'm very honored to now introduce to you the mayor of Maastricht, Mrs. Annemarie Penterstraken, who would like to say a few words also to Martin.
Thank you, Rianne. Thank you for allowing, a lot of speeches here, for allowing me to speak a few words here on this special occasion. Maastricht's municipal authorities would like very much to express their gratitude, Martin, to you, Professor Martin Pol. So you will be not hearing something scientific nature from me, but rather a farewell salute to one of our eminent residents. Martin, ladies and gentlemen, the European University, I would like to say, of the Netherlands, is bidding farewell to its president, but not to its esteemed friend Martin Pol. We talked it over a few weeks ago. I said, du hast nog immer een koffer in Berlin, but de hubs nog altijd de hoes in Maastricht. Don't forget. And also, after all, someone who seeks cooperation between universities in Europe, as he does, will often find himself in Maastricht. He has himself contributed significantly to Maastricht University's status as a European institute. So we may assume that in future his name will be often heard in the boardroom and the corridors of Maastricht University. Little gossip maybe also afterwards, that's how it goes. But, of course, that will also be due to his extensive administrative legacy. Martin, you are a medical scientist at heart. Beyond that, you are a transnational and visionary administrator. And above all, you are a committed European. And these intrinsic motives combined make you a gifted advocate of the European ideal, namely peace, security, and prosperity for all. You dedicated your academic work entirely to that higher humanitarian purpose. You play a critical role in establishing connections, both in the Netherlands and internationally, connections between universities, between academia and industry, and between the academic community and our society. As I said, you do not recognize national borders, at least not in the sense of a dividing line, but rather in the sense of a line where different insights and perspectives are woven together, because that generates tolerance and respect. You were appointed, it's been said, but I have to repeat it, I'm sorry, Dean of the Maastricht University's Faculty of Health, Medicine and Life Sciences is in 2008. You also became Vice President of the Maastricht University Medical Center Plus. In May 2011, you were appointed President of the Maastricht University. And during that time, you played a critical role in the university's development, and in doing so, in the development of the city of Maastricht and the province of Limburg. You charted a strategic course, forged alliances, and promoted Maastricht's good name all around the world. For me, one of the highlights would be the Brightlands program. In 2014, it led to the creation of 4 very different but closely allied campuses in Limburg, all operating under a single banner. You were one of the initiators of this program and have done everything in your power to make it a success. And you succeeded, because Brightlands has grown into an innovative community where 29,000 talented researchers, entrepreneurs, and students work every day on international breakthroughs in sustainability, health, and digitalization. Dear Martin, at the opening of the academic year on the 6th of September, the university presented its new strategic plan. It is, of course, focused on the future, but it looks rather like your legacy. With regard to the university's positioning as a European institute, much has been achieved in the past decade. And let me summarize. It's a whole list. The curriculum includes several European programs. 55% of the students are of foreign origin. 90% of these are from Europe, while 40% of the academic staff come from a foreign European country. Maastricht University campus in Brussels, a chair in the European history and integration, and the Living Lab Studio, Europa, we know. It hosts the 2-day Maastricht Europe Days dialogue. It is also the initiator of and chair of the Young Universities for the Future and Europe, and participates in the Young European Research Network. And since Europe is a part of the world, it seeks cooperation in other areas of the global as well. For example, through the membership of the Association of Academic Health Centers International and the Worldwide Universities Network. Your signature can be found on every one of these endeavors. You have worked on them with unparalleled dedication and idealism, amongst other things by serving on the boards of various international organizations. You have united universities, scientists, and students and given them the opportunity to develop and grow together. In addition to your board international outlook, you have always focused on the importance of the region. You are a connector, someone who knows how to bring business, knowledge institutions, and governance together. In doing so, you have made a significant contribution to the economic and socio-cultural growth of the city of Maastricht. And the south of Limburg region, of course, in the whole, and also the Euroregion Meuse-Rhine, Brightlands, which I mentioned earlier, is a splendid example of this. Martin, your colleagues, friends, and students describe you as an amiable, committed, and an inspiring leader. You are greatly admired, and you are an authoritative university administrator, using your talents in the service of humanity at the local, national, and international level. Society owes you a debt of gratitude. We already expressed our thanks to you on the 6th of September by awarding you the Order of Merit of the city of Maastricht. That was recognition at the local level. But as I said, your merits stretch far beyond that. A gesture of national recognition is also appropriate. I therefore have the great honor of conveying King William Alexander's thanks on behalf of the country. And the king is not content with words alone. He is making you, Martin Alphonse Paul, officer of the Order of Oranje-Nassau. I congratulate you with all my heart. Will you please come? So I'll close. We wish you all the best in Bochum, Martin, and you're always welcome in the Stadhuis for the Burgemeestersmix. I hope to see you often. Thank you.
Sie frei, wer kann sie erraten? Sie rauschen vorbei wie nächtliche Schatten. Kein Mensch kann sich wissen, kein Jäger sie schießen. Ich bleibe dabei, es bleibe dabei, die Gedanken sind frei. Nur vergebliche Werke, denn meine Gedanken zerreißen die Schranken und Mauer und zwei, die Gedanken sind frei, die Gedanken sind frei. Im Sommer ist gut lustig sein, auf oben will der So sei's wie es will, und wenn es sich schicke, nur alles sei in der Stille, nur alles in der Stille, alles in der Stille. bekehren, niemand kann's wehren. Ich bleib dabei, die Gedanken sind frei, die Gedanken sind frei.
Mein Schatz, du siegst so fröhlich hier, wie's Vögelein im Grase. Ich steh so traurig bei Gartentür, wär ich doch tot, wär ich bei dir. Ach, muss ich immer denn klagen?
Weil du so knallst, Herr, lieb ich im Tage. Und es ist gewagt, und es ist gewagt, so kann mich nichts plagen. So kann ich in Herzen, stehst lachen und Herzen. Ich bleibe dabei, die Gedanken sind frei. Die Gedanken sind frei.
Please stay. They're leaving. Please stay. Because I was going to say a few words also about you. It's in my script. I hope it was in yours. No, please, because I hope you have, just as much as I have, enjoyed the performance by our opera group, which is called The Fat Lady, consisting, as I said at the beginning, of mezzo-soprano Veronique van der Meijden, bariton, and our baritone, Jonky Eurlings. And also the wonderful pianist Tamir Chasson, who's also the leader of the group. And you should also know that it's the former chair of our supervisory board, Truus Lodder, sitting left from me, who has arranged this musical contribution for you, Martin, and I hope you have enjoyed it. Thanks again for your wonderful performance. And this also brings us to the end of this academic ceremony, the farewell celebration of our president, Professor Martin Paul. And I also would like to thank our mayor for giving this honor also to Martin on this very special day. Thank you also very much for being here today. I would like to ask you all to stay seated for just another moment to grant our cortege the honor of leaving the auditorium first. We will go through the doors on the right, and then the guests in the front row will also follow. And after that, you are all invited to come for a drink with us in the new bistro in this beautiful building, which is called Bar Bistro Saam. And there we will have a toast on Martin's Gesamtkunstwerk. And we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you very much.